Hey everyone, Andrew back again and welcome to another video, and as you can tell from the title, I'm here to answer your questions. So about a week or so ago I uploaded a Q&A video, got a good response, got some really interesting questions, so yeah, here are my answers. And if you missed out on asking me something, I'll probably do another one of these in a few months' time, so don't worry, you'll have another opportunity to ask me some stuff if you want. But yeah, I got a fair few questions, so this will be done in two parts, just so there's not one super long video and I'm not rushing through everyone's questions to try and get it in one video. So this will be done in two parts, and I am in a different spot. I'm out in the living room. So this is what my living room looks like, and I'm sitting in front of the computer, so I'll just be reading the questions from the comment section. It's just the easiest way to do it, so I do apologize if I'm looking at my computer screen for half of the video. But yeah, not much more to say, so let's get started. Okay, so the first question is from Metal Mickey or Mike. Hey Mike, how you doing? Thanks a lot for your question. You wanted to know what are my top 5 video games of all time. Really good question. I don't really upload video game related videos anymore. I used to. It's not that I've lost interest in gaming, but I'm certainly not really collecting like I used to, or really playing like I used to. And it's kind of been that way for about a year and a half now. It was just too much. Collecting was getting too expensive and playing everything was just way too time consuming. So yeah, but I still do enjoy playing video games, and I have done pretty much ever since I was a young child. So my top 5 video games are Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Crash Bandicoot 3, Bioshock, Uncharted 2 and Mass Effect. A couple of other honourable mentions, definitely the Call of Duty franchise that almost made my top 5 but not quite. I've been playing that since Call of Duty 4, and the past few years have been a bit rough for me. I'm not a fan of the futuristic jetpack stuff, but now that it's back to the traditional boots on the ground, I'm absolutely loving the shit out of World War II. I'm also a big Elder Scrolls fan, and Heavy Rain is another game that I absolutely love. So yeah, those are my top 5 and a couple of honourable mentions. So Mike, thanks a lot for your question, and let me know what your top 5 video games of all time are. I'd be interested to hear what yours are, so let me know. Okay, moving on to the next question. It is from Phil LV. So Phil, thanks for your questions. The first question is a bit of a brutal one actually. I don't even really want to think about this ever happening, but he wanted to know if my house was on fire and I only had time to grab one item from my Halloween collection, what would it be? Now initially I was thinking of grabbing my NAG 75k mask, but after thinking about it, I could easily get another one of those made. However, you Michael Myers collectors know how rare these figurines are getting now. A lot of companies have lost the rights to Michael Myers and are no longer making figures, so I'd grab this one. And I apologise about the glare, but this one has Michael Myers in it and Dr. Sam Loomis from the original Halloween, and it's the Night He Came Home set. I would definitely grab this one. It's still in the box, so it's nice and easy for me to grab and get the hell out. So that's definitely the item that I would choose. But yeah, I don't even want to think about this house burning down, honestly, because I've got all my movies, my collectibles, my music, other personal items as well. So yeah, anyway, moving on to your second question. You wanted to know if I've ever driven the Outback Highway. No, I haven't. I've never actually been to the Outback before. I've always wanted to. Next year I plan to go to Ayers Rock and Alice Springs, which I cannot wait for. I've been wanting to do that for many years now, so hopefully next year all goes to plan and I actually get there. And I'm really looking forward to it. I've been wanting to go to the outback for ages. So yeah, thanks a lot for your questions. Next up, we have a question from Todd All Things Horror. You wanted to know if I could pick one screen used prop, what would it be? And it couldn't be anything Michael Myers related, which is fair enough. It would definitely be the treasure map from The Goonies. The Goonies is my favourite film of all time, and I would absolutely love to have a screen used prop from that film, and why not the treasure map? It would be a great piece to frame and display on the wall. So yeah, I would definitely choose the screen used treasure map from The Goonies. So Todd, thanks for your question. Our next question is from John Vinylizer. Hey John, how's it going? Thanks for your question. And you wanted to know, what is the oldest horror film that I own? It's these films right here, the Universal Monster black and white classics. Now, to be completely honest, I'm not a massive fan of old school horror, but these are essential, you know, they have to be in a horror collection. It's where a lot of the horror genre really started back in the day with these films, and I do respect them a lot for what they are, but these are definitely films that I have to be in the mood to check out, and they don't get a lot of screen time with me, but still they are the oldest films that I own horror-wise within my collection. So John, thanks for your question. Next question's from Loch Ness Monster, and he wanted to know, has there been any horror film from this year that I was really excited to see and ended up hating? Yep, The Void. I'm a massive fan of sci-fi horror, and I was super excited to check the movie out, really hyped for it, and ended up absolutely hating it. So there you go. And you also wanted to know if I've checked out the trailer for next year's Day of the Dead film. No, I haven't. I've heard about the film though. I haven't really been following it too closely, so I will definitely be getting on the trailer. I love the original film, and as much hate as the remake gets, it's a bit of a guilty pleasure for me, and yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how next year's Day of the Dead turns out. Hopefully it's really good. So thanks for the heads up on the trailer. I will definitely be checking that one out. So thanks a lot for your questions. Okay, next up is a question from the Rock Scout, or Scott. Hey Scott, how are you going? Thanks for your question. You wanted to know, and this was a pretty good question actually, you wanted to know if I could pick from one band's back catalogue to create a horror movie soundtrack. Who would it be? Definitely King Diamond. I think his music would fit perfectly in a sort of gothic themed haunted house film perhaps. You know, a lot of his music is definitely horror themed and influenced, and I definitely would like to see a King Diamond horror movie soundtrack. So yeah, my pick would definitely be King Diamond. So Scott, thanks for your question. Next up, we have a couple of questions from Ross over at Vinyl Boy Trigger. The first question you wanted to know, Ross, is there any horror movie that I won't watch alone at night? Not really. I've been watching horror films since I was about 10 years old, and I'm 35 years old now, so it's been a very, very long time, and I'm really desensitized to the whole genre, and nothing really scares me anymore, so there's really nothing that I won't watch by myself. So no to your answer for that. You also wanted to know if I'm into any sports. Yes, I am. Tennis is my all-time favourite sport of all time. I also play it, and I watch it pretty obsessively, so tennis is my favourite sport. I'm also into AFL and soccer. So thanks for your questions, Ross. Alright, next question is from Simon, or Explosive Action. He asked a couple of questions, and a couple of really good ones actually. He wanted to know if I recall the first time ever watching Halloween and what was my immediate thought after it. I don't remember the first time I watched it, however I do remember the first time watching it on Blu-ray. It was the Australian Beyond disc, which has been out for many, many years now, and I was blown away by how good it looked on Blu-ray, especially the blue colour look to the film. And I basically have the same thought about the movie every time I watch it. I've seen the film hundreds of times now. It's my favourite horror film of all time, and my opinions never really change. I think it's an absolute masterpiece of horror cinema. It's a flawless horror movie in my opinion. Amazing soundtrack, great atmosphere, amazing characters, and yeah, it's just an absolutely amazing masterpiece of a horror film, and I love it. So I definitely have the same thought every time I watch it. Doesn't matter how many times I've seen it or how often I watch it, I still have the same immediate thought after it. So yeah, and the next question's a bit of a fun one. It's to do with the big four thrash bands, and you guys already know I have pretty strong opinions on this particular topic. There's a couple of bands that I don't think deserve to be in the big four of thrash, but it is what it is. So Simon asks, often people say the big four thrash bands should have replaced Anthrax with Testament. I 100% agree with that. Sorry Anthrax fans, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of Anthrax, and I don't think they deserve to be part of the big four. Anyway, if Testament refused the honour, who would I like to see as number four? Pretty interesting question. Two bands came to mind, Exuma, but I would probably count them out because they're from Germany. So if we're sticking with the traditional US big four, it would definitely go to Death Angel. Death Angel, I think, are absolutely amazing, very consistent thrash band, and they've been around since the 80s and they're still going pretty strong today. So yeah, I would definitely say Death Angel. So Simon, thanks a lot for your questions. Alright, we'll do a couple more questions and then we'll round off part one. Next up we have a pretty cool question from Leo from Too Much Metal Is Barely Enough, and he wanted to know what are some of my favourite Australian movies from the 80s, both horror and non-horror. I've got a few here. This is a film that doesn't really get mentioned too much, and that is Kodacha. This is a hidden gem, late 80s Australian horror film, and it's really, really good. It's one of the few horror movies, or the only horror movie that I've ever seen that focuses on Aboriginal culture and does so very, very well. It's very Aussie, it's very 80s, and yeah, it's really, really good. Next up is one that's considered Ozploitation, and that is Dead End Drive-In. This is a fantastic film, directed by Brian Tentred Smith, who's done a lot of Aussie and Ozploitation films in the past. He did BMX Bandits and Turkey Shoot. This one's really good. It's not a full-on horror film. It's sort of set in a dystopia universe where delinquents are held captive in a drive-in, and it's really, really good. It's awesome. Super, super 80s, so highly recommend that. This is a late 80s Killer Croc creature feature film, Dark Age. It's awesome, and it stars a pretty young John Jarratt, who you guys probably know from the Wolf Creek series. Yeah, this one's awesome. A couple of non-horrors. Could not mention The Road Warrior or Mad Max 2. Very, very well-known film, but definitely had to quickly mention this one. I love this film. It's my favourite within the Mad Max series, and it's a classic. And my favourite Australian film of all time is BMX Bandits. This is basically an Australian version of the Goonies, so I don't really need to say too much more on that. This is amazing. It's pure 80s, and it's amazing. So that's BMX Bandits. So there you go, Leo. Those are just a handful of movies that I picked out. And let me know if you've seen any of these, Leo, and if you have, your thoughts on them. Alrighty, the last question we have is from, or for this part anyway, is from Dots and Loops Records, and he wanted me to name 2 horror films that no one really knows or has seen that you love and why I love them. This took a bit of thought, but I came up with 2. First one we have is In Their Skin. This is a home invasion film, and I'm a massive home invasion genre fan. And this is a very, very different home invasion film. It's very unique. And I don't really want to say too much about the film without, because it is kind of difficult to talk about without spoiling it, but it's basically kind of like a family want to take over another family's identity kind of home invasion film. Very, very well done. Pretty intense and pretty creepy. So I definitely highly recommend this one. And this is an Aussie film that I don't think I've really heard anyone else talk about, and that is The Clinic. This was a blind buy for me. I'd never actually heard of this movie before. I'd seen it in stores. It was super cheap. And I've owned it for a while now, and I decided to give it a go. And initially when I picked it up, I wasn't even aware that this was an Australian film, but this one's really, really good. It's basically about a group of women that have been pregnant, their babies have been removed, and they're basically held captive in a warehouse. And they've got little coloured tags in their stomachs, and it's basically up to them to either cut the tag out or find a way to find out which baby belongs to which mother. Pretty unique as well. It's really, really good, and another one that I obviously highly recommend. So Dots, Loops and Records, thanks a lot for your question. And yeah, I'm going to wrap up part 1 here. So stay tuned for part 2 when I answer the remaining questions. So everyone that I've answered in part 1, thanks a lot for your questions. I hope you've enjoyed my answers, and stay on the lookout for part 2.